Hi, everybody. This is Maxine Taylor, and I have the forecast for the United States for July, August, and September. There is so much going on astrologically, politically, etc. What I'm going to do is bottom line it and keep it short, sweet, and easy to understand. First of all, if you've been watching my videos, you know that July is a big month astrologically because we have 2 eclipses and Mercury goes retrograde. Now, on an eclipse, everything comes to a head. Even the solar eclipse, which is a new moon, things start moving forward on the solar eclipse, on the new moon. And so these eclipses are strongest 3 to 4 months after they occur. And I will remind you of that, of course, 3 to 4 months from now. In addition, Mercury is retrograde. We've been in the shadow of the retrograde for about 2 weeks prior to July 1st. And when Mercury goes retrograde, Mercury rules communication, correspondence, transportation, and everything gets confused. We do not start any new projects under a retrograde Mercury because they either fizzle out completely or have to be redone within the year. What we do instead is we tie up the loose ends of unfinished projects. Now, we feel this personally in our own charts, and everybody around the world feels it. Every nation feels it as well. So I'm going to start with both the eclipses. I can get organized here. Here we go. And I've got and Mercury retrograde. First of all, I'm going to start with the eclipses. The first eclipse is July 2nd. Now, this eclipse is very important for the United States because it falls on our sun. Whenever a country or a person, whenever you have an eclipse on your sun, it is a new life. Not a new chapter, a whole new book. And this is true if the eclipse falls on the sun, the moon, or the rising sign, the ascendant. So on July 2nd, by the way, we feel these eclipses probably a week before they occur, of course. The solar eclipse, I have a little red star here, sits on the sun in the United States chart. So the United States is having a solar return and an eclipse on the sun. This means the second house, of course, deals with our income, our finances, our earning power, our savings accounts. It deals with the stock exchange, with banks, with debts, and with commerce and trade, money from commerce and trade. So this is very, very important. The eclipse is on the 2nd, but the solar return, the day that the sun returns to its natal place in the chart, is on, of course, July 4th. So this is a very, very important time for the country, which means that the sun is the giver of life. Wherever the sun is, that's the area of life that comes alive. This should bring, to a certain degree, more money, and this is wonderful. Now, we have this as the new moon. On the full moon, the lunar eclipse, which is right here in the 9th house. A lunar eclipse occurs on a full moon. On a full moon, everything comes to a head. What's coming to a head? First of all, the upper courts. This would be the Supreme Court. This deals, the 9th house deals with foreign travel. People, leaders from other lands, people from other lands, higher education, religion, advertising, insurance. It deals with international trade and communication. What this eclipse does is it sits on Pluto. Now, I put it in orange here. Pluto is the planet of control or total transformation. It means out with the old, in with the new. And our foreign trade, the tariffs, the taxes from foreign trade, our government has gone back and forth on those. And with Pluto, what this says is there is the potential for a totally brand new attitude and outlook when it comes to foreign trade, when it comes to interaction with foreign countries, which means, because we're never sure what Trump is going to say, what he's going to do. He changes it very often. We don't know how this is going to manifest. So the potential, we do know. The potential is total change in our international trade and trade routes and trade agreements and tariffs, or more control involved with our international trade routes, taxes and tariffs. So that's the full moon. And remember, these eclipses are strongest 3 to 4 months after they occur. I'm going to give you the other full moons while I'm on a roll here, because on the full moon, that's when everything comes to a head. On August 15th, the full moon falls in the 10th house of our public image. It sits on our moon. Now, the moon represents the 10th house represents the party in power. That would be the Republican Party. The moon often indicates change. And so there can be a change in the position of the president, the leadership of the Republican Party, and our reputation worldwide. We have a moon in Aquarius, which is quite lovely. But when a full moon falls on the moon in the 10th house, moon is change. And while the change can be beneficial, it is still a change. And the moon, for those of you who study astrology, in our chart, forms a grand trine with Uranus and Saturn. So this can be very beneficial to our public image. Not sure how that's going to work out yet. Remember, this is all potential. How it manifests remains to be seen, even in your own birth chart. If I do a forecast for you, it's raw potential. It's up to you to use it as you see fit. And that's where the free will comes in. Of course, we're dealing with millions of people in the United States, so maybe not that much free will, but the group will. And the full moon in September is on the 14th. Now, while the 10th house deals with the president, our public image, and our leaders, the 11th house deals with Congress, congressmen, legislation. It deals with the treasury as well, which is very, very interesting. It deals with city and county councils. It deals with our friends. And so there's lots of activity with groups of people coming together. It can be people making protest. It can be that there is more action than coming from Congress and our congressional leaders, which would be great. Okay, now having covered all of that, what I want to do is go over the path of the sun for the next 3 months. As I said, it starts out in our second house of money and savings and earnings, and this can be very positive. On the 14th, the sun moves into our third house. Now, the third house, very, very interesting, is the house of communication, correspondence, transportation. It deals with public opinion. It deals with the news media. It deals with our neighbors, okay? It can be neighborhoods, that are undergoing a transformation, undergoing a change. That would be lovely. It deals with the news media, with people in the news, with traffic. And short distance travel deals with trains, planes, and automobiles. In other words, it deals with city transit, mass transit, deals with books, anything that deals with communication, of course, schools, and as I said, public transportation. Now, on the 17th, the sun lights up Mercury, and there is more communication involved, more, whether it's from the news media, but there is a new way, a new approach to communicating because the sun lights everything up. Then on the 30th of July, the sun sits on our north node. Now, the north node is the area of greatest success and achievement. It's a very positive thing, particularly in a mundane chart. And so what the sun does is it lights up everything dealing with trains, planes, automobiles, the news media. Thank goodness for the news media. They do a beautiful job. Traffic, roads. This would be short distance, short roads, county roads perhaps. Ninth house would be interstate roads, neighborhoods. And so there's more expression from the people with the sun in the third house. Then on August 6th, the sun moves into the fourth house. Now, the fourth house deals with home and family. It deals with real estate. It deals with land. It deals with the weather. Don't get me started. Okay. It deals with all domestic affairs. It deals with crops. And the sun lights it up. So this is a good thing. This is a good thing. There are other indications that are going to tend to offset this, and I'll share them with you in just a minute. On September 6th, the sun moves into the fifth house of children, of fun and games, sports, gambling, sex. I know that, of course, women's right to have control over their own bodies can come up during this time, of course. The birth rate, congressional and public hearings. And on the 15th of September, the sun sits on Neptune. Neptune in the fifth house is escape. Neptune is fun. Neptune is escape, and it's our dream. And so there can be a lot more fun. There can be more recreation. Neptune rules drugs. There can be more recreational drug activity. And I'm gonna stop here because I'm going to be repeating myself with Mercury, Venus, and Mars. So let me do that right now. Now, Mercury, as we know, is going to go retrograde between July 7th and 8th and direct on July 31st and August 1st. But we are in the shadow for about 2 weeks before that and 2 weeks after that. And if you haven't watched my video, Mercury Retrograde, the prequel and the sequel, it's on YouTube. Watch it because it explains what the shadow of the retrograde Mercury is. So whenever Mercury goes retrograde, everything gets confused because Mercury is our communication, correspondence, transportation. When Mercury is retrograde, it appears to be moving backwards in the heavens. It's not, but it appears to be, and that's exactly how it feels here on planet Earth. You are not going to start any new projects on a retrograde Mercury because they'll either fizzle out completely or have to be redone within the year. The same holds true for countries. And so when Mercury goes retrograde, it goes retrograde in that third house of public opinion, the news media, rumors, traffic. Everything is confused. so that the news may be contradicting itself. Now, I know different networks are saying different things, but this is making promises and then changing your mind. This is putting plans into action that don't turn out the way we would like them to. We have a Mercury return. Mercury sits on itself from July 27th to August 5th. This is a very powerful time. And remember that Mercury is going to go direct between July 31st and August 1st. So there's going to be a lot of news, lots of traffic. I would think that people would be very careful in traffic because there's a potential for accidents with all the confusion. Things that could go wrong in travel, say with stoplights even, or cars just not functioning right. There can be, since we're dealing with a planet of transportation, this is a time when we're talking about planes, trains, and automobiles and mass transit. So they're going to be confused. On August 20th, Mercury moves into the fourth house. Now, Mercury is what we think about and talk about. It's not so much action as talk. And so we're thinking about the weather. We're talking about the weather. We're talking about the land. The fourth house, by the way, rules the party out of power. So that on August 6th, the Democratic Party is active. I'm not sure how that will manifest, but the focus is there. On August 15th, of course, the full moon emphasizes the president and the Republican Party. Okay, so Mercury in the fourth house, we're thinking about making changes to crops. There can be thinking in terms of how to handle the weather. And again, this is the party out of power that will be doing lots of communicating, the Democratic Party. September 4th, Mercury moves into that fifth house, and we're talking about fun, we're talking about games, we're talking about children. And whenever I see children triggered with the sun and Mercury, I think of those children who are in cages. And I think it's time, it's way past time, for the people responsible for caging those children, separating them from their parents. It is time for them to take the responsibility to return those children to their families. And perhaps this Neptune in the fifth house is the dream come true. Mercury is talking about it, and talking about sports, and talking about gambling, and talking about sex. All these subjects come up in various ways. On the 9th of September, Mercury sits on Neptune, and that's talking about our dream. For our children, perhaps spending more time involved with sporting events. Neptune rules movies. And so this can be a time when people are going to the movies more because they need an escape. Let's see, on the 15th of September, the sun is on Neptune. On the 9th of September, Mercury is on Neptune, talking about all kinds of dreams that we can put into operation. Now, on the 22nd of September, Mercury sits on Saturn, and Saturn is responsibility. Saturn is reality. Neptune is the dream. Oh, let's do this, let's do that. Saturn says, how are you going to do it? How are you going to do it? And Saturn rules the authority figures in our country. And so this is a time when authority figures are going to be looking at their responsibility for what has gone on. And then on the 23rd of September, Mercury moves into the sixth house. And this deals with our health care, the military, all civil servants, food, particularly if we've got taxes and tariffs on imports and exports. Our food can be involved. The police department, the fire department, animals, our pets. All these areas are triggered with Mercury. All right, by Mercury. Now, excuse me, let's look at Venus. Venus is the lesser benefic. It brings love and happiness. Well, it sits in our second house of money, and this can increase our income beautifully. I love the way this looks. On July 5th, we have a Venus return. There's more fun, there's more money, more earnings. There can be an improvement in the stock market. There may be help for our debts, our personal debts, which is beautiful. And then on the 13th, Venus sits on the sun and lights it up. And Venus in the second house can increase our income. I don't know by how much or how it will happen, but it's there. The potential is there. I love it. On July 20th, Venus moves into the third house of communication, correspondence, transportation, and brings a very loving approach, a very optimistic and positive approach to our communication, our news, public opinion, traffic, roads, of course, neighborhoods. This is a great time for beautification of neighborhoods, schools, improvement of schools and teachers, and once again, mass public transportation. On July 23rd, Venus sits on Mercury. This is a beautiful aspect for getting the point across positively and lovingly. And this is a time when I would suggest, if it's going to happen, that our leaders do something about the roads, about communication and transportation, planes that are crashing, cars that aren't working, fix them. Then on August 2nd, Venus sits on our north node. And what this tells me is we can come up with new ways of handling our problems, coming to opposite ideas, meeting, and lovingly exchanging ideas to come to a solution. On August 8th, Venus moves into the fourth house of real estate. The Democratic Party, this is a very positive time for them because of Venus being love. All our domestic affairs, we can make progress right now. The land, the weather, the crops, and seniors, benefits for seniors. And then September 1st, Venus, love, beauty, moves into the fifth house of fun and games. This can be more theater, more movies, more parties, gambling, sports. Now, this also deals with congressional and public hearings. Venus on Neptune, September 8th. This is a time when our hopes, our dreams are activated, and we can create the dream coming true, whatever that dream happens to be. It's fifth house, it deals with children, and I just stepped off of my soapbox about kids in cages because of the leadership in this country. The leadership needs to get those kids out of those cages, and I'd love to see it happen way before September 8th, but the children who everybody says will never be returned to their families. That would be my wish, my dream. And then on September 22nd, Venus helps the authority figures in our lives be responsible, take their loving responsibility. Same topic as we just talked about. Now let's talk about Mars, shall we? Wherever Mars is, that's where the action is, truly action. Mars is anger. Mars is temper. Mars is impatience. Mars is wherever it is, that's what we're focused on. Well, here we are. Mars is war. Mars is anger. It's sitting in our third house of communication, transportation, the public opinion. The tone of our ideas is impatience and anger. This deals with neighborhoods. It's time to get them cleaned up and beautified while Mars is there. This is a time to be careful in traffic because Mars is impatience and there can be more accidents. The third house, once again, communication, the news media, reporters, public opinion, the mail, traffic, short distance travel, neighborhoods, domestic matters, and public transportation. And July 13th and 14th, well, that looks real good when Mars sits on our north node, yay. Now, July 24th, Mars moves into the fourth house. It brings anger, it brings impatience. This deals with the party out of power, the Democratic Party. This is a time to handle real estate, domestic affairs, do something about the weather, about the land, crops, farmers. This is the time to take care of those issues because people are going to be angry and impatient. Take care of them from July 24th to September 8th. And then on September 8th, Mars, passion, moves into that fifth house of fun and games. It deals with children. And if we have not gotten those kids out of those cages, it is time for our leadership to do something about it. When I say leadership, everybody involved. I'm not going to point fingers. We know it starts at the top. That's where it started. That's where it needs to be fixed. And on September 22nd, Mars, that says, let's go for it, sits on Neptune that says, oh, it's so dreamy and nice out here. There is impatience to put our dreams into operation. There may be some arguing over recreational drugs, because Neptune does rule alcohol, nicotine, caffeine, any of the drugs that we take. And this can be very helpful too, not just from a recreational standpoint, but from perhaps being able to lower the price of prescription drugs, Neptune drugs. Now, there's one thing I want to mention. Look at Pluto sitting up here on the ninth house cusp. When a planet is on the cusp, it is at the strongest point it can be. And Pluto has been hovering right around this ninth cusp, which deals with foreigners, foreign trade. It deals with higher education, the upper courts, the Supreme Court. It deals with insurance, with world trade, and it deals with our belief system, our principles. And Pluto is all or nothing. And as we have seen in this administration, we have seen everything going from one extreme to the other, all or nothing. And while Pluto is sitting up there, we are subject to our policies being out with the old, in with the new, with our communication and trade with foreign countries, all or nothing. And the total transformation of our belief system. You hear what I'm saying. Now, there are a couple of dates that I want to share with everybody. If you've looked at your forecast, your sun sign forecast, you know about these dates. On July 8th, Mercury goes retrograde, 7th and 8th, in 4 degrees of Leo. On that very same day, Mars, the planet of war and arguing and impatience, is in 4 degrees of Leo. So you've got arguing and communication. This is a time when I am hoping that everybody, every person, every leader will not say things that they will later regret. Fortunately, during that time, we have Venus in the third house. We have the sun sitting on our north node. But this is a time when there can be more accidents, more arguing, more fighting. It just is. Now, on July 31st, between July 31st and August 1st, that is when Mercury goes direct. That is also the day of the new moon. And on a new moon, everything starts moving forward. So I feel like when Mercury goes direct, it's going to be leaping out of the barn. In other words, it's not going to just kind of move forward. Mercury is going to be ready to absolutely lift off. And with the new moon backing it, saying, yeah, let's go, let's start, let's do it. I think we'll move forward more quickly than normally. I certainly do hope so. So I had tons of papers, tons, with all kinds of things to say. And I thought, I need to simplify it and do it in small bites so that everybody can get what is going on. Things are building to the election in 2020. I don't know if those of you who study astrology probably know that November 3rd, which is the day of the election, Mercury goes direct. It is retrograde up until that point. And you know how confused things can get during a retrograde Mercury. So we are building to that point. And there's a lot going on, not just, of course, in the United States, but all over the world. And I want to suggest to all light workers, all healers, that you use this time now to prepare to step forward and let your light shine. Because you are needed, you are part of the divine plan, and I look forward to meeting as many of you as I can in the coming year. So, till we meet again, may the stars shine brightly on you and yours. Bye for now.